I'd actually like to talk about the one in Phuket because I think it's doable for everybody here in the room, whether you're in the hotels industry or just trying to live a life that's more eco-friendly. I was here for July and August, got to visit 45 Phuket hotels that are associated in the Phuket Hotels Association, and basically created baseline data. So that's step one in trying to live a more eco-friendly life, whether as an individual or an industry. So create baseline data so you can measure your progress, right? The second one is talk. Oh my gosh, connect with each other. Make sure you know best practices, that's the third. And make sure you know what best practices look like. So everybody here, I could tell you, I live a plastic-free life. And you're like, oh, that's great. But you don't know what that looks like, right? You don't know that I stand in the grocery store in front of one of my favorite fruits, blueberries, and almost break into tears because I can never buy them because they only come in plastic. So sometimes that's what a plastic-free life looks like, right? And sometimes it looks like a delicious banana right off a tree, plastic-free. So best practices. The fourth is sharing information. So we created, in 2 months, an environmental champions group, which I'm so proud of, that's dinging on the Line app on everybody's phone like crazy, sharing experiences between different hotels and sharing what works and what doesn't work. So that's really important. The fourth or fifth, but a suppliers group. So making sure that everybody knows, all right, I tried this paper straw and it's terrible. So don't buy this one, buy this one, right? And that's what's going to change you in your life, and that's what's going to change industry. Before I stop talking, I want everyone here to think really hard about which plastic they're going to give up today and commit to it for an entire year. In 5 seconds, we're going to all shout it out. And it can't be a plastic you already gave up, because that's cheating. So it could be a cup, it could be a coffee cup lined in plastic, it could be an iced coffee cup, it could be a lids, it could be plastic straws, toothbrushes, oh my goodness. So, ready? Think. Tumblers. Hang on. Okay, ready? On the count of 3, everybody shout it out. Go! Shampoo! That's a good one. Okay, thank you.
Another P that I have for you is passion. You're just so passionate about your work. Another individual that has a lot of passion for conservation is Steve right here. So we understand that Steve has the best of every world, pretty much. First, he looks like Hugh Grant. Secondly, he has the best job in the world, pretty much, right? So can you please tell us some of the work that you've done, other project that you really admire? Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to take a more holistic approach and bring it back to the coastal and marine tourism. We're in tourism. So I liked what Eric said at the beginning about understanding the scale and looking around you. And the first thing we need to realize is that everything is interconnected. What happens on land impacts the ocean. And the greatest threats to the ocean at the moment are not only ocean warming. The ocean absorbs 90% of all the excess heat. Acidification, it absorbs 25% of all the excess carbon dioxide, which makes it acidic. Pollution, we've already talked about plastic. The threats include destruction of habitats, but the number one threat to the oceans is over-exploitation. And this comes about because of, we know it as tragedy of the commons. Nobody owns it, so everybody takes as much as they want. So what does the oceans look like? What do they look like if we don't get this under control? Well, you end up with, at the moment, you've got 4.5 billion people on the planet relying on fish as their primary source of protein. You've got 10% of the world's population relying on fish as a source of income. And if we don't get it under control, we end up with dead zones, we end up with a loss of habitats, and most tourism is founded on natural cultural heritage. So that, then our business is in trouble as well. So what can we do? There's 4 simple things. Well, not so simple perhaps, but there's 4 things we should be doing, I think. The first one is we need to source our food responsibly. We need to know whether or not local doesn't necessarily mean sustainable. We need to get food from sustainable stocks, whether or not it's Marine Stewardship Council certified. Being farmed doesn't necessarily mean there's no impact. Often agriculture can have more impact than actually catching the fish. We also need to educate and connect both with our communities, which is internal, meaning our staff, our associates, but also externally with the communities around us. And hospitality has a great opportunity, I think, to actually be engaged within conservation. So integrated conservation is often very successful. There's some great examples around the world, like in St. Lucia in the Caribbean, where they create zones that protect areas for tourism, areas for fishing, areas for nothing, to allow the stocks to survive and persist. And I think within Phuket itself, there's the opportunity to engage with mangroves, to protect the livelihoods of those that depend on the fisheries around here. The last things that we really need to do include minimizing waste. What happens on land affects the ocean. So if we can reduce the waste on land, if we can get engaged with communities to do cleaning, if we can start talking about these things like we are today, then I feel that's the first step towards stewardship. Once you start discussing things and you break down those barriers, then people start taking ownership over something like the ocean, which nobody actually owns. Thank you.
Wow, excellent. I really can't agree more because that's very close to my heart as well. So at WWF, we do take responsible seafood very seriously. The Marine Stewardship Council is partially founded by the WWF along with the company Unilever. And it's been 20 years, and we're looking at launching yet another initiative, the Responsible Seafood Group. What it is actually pretty much what Steve mentioned. We want to highlight exactly which providers already provide you with responsible seafood. So local does not necessarily mean sustainable. That's a hard fact. It's very hard to accept because you want to know that smallholder you've been supporting is very sustainable. But we're there to actually trying to give them the support to become truly sustainable by science, okay? So that we know that this really means something to everybody who's buying from you. So the Responsible Seafood Group is actually made for hotels and restaurants alike. It is a directory. If you remember the phone book, some of the students here are probably too young to remember the phone book, but the phone book was where you would go find your businesses and that you know that they're legitimate, right? You know, you wouldn't ever doubt that the phone book would have illegitimate businesses there. And so we're trying to create that for responsible seafood. So that if you're a procurement manager in your hotel, you can just open this up and you can find your seafood, your scallops from Hokkaido. What specifications, what certification do you need? Well, you can find that, and that platform creates that handshake. And you know this is good because it's endorsed by both the IUCN and WWF. We have no-go zones very clearly stipulated. So if any fishery goes to that no-go zone, they're automatically out. And you know that this is a very positive effect because you know for sure that you can claim you're sourcing from responsible sources. And we're here to recognize you too. We have a star-rated system so that we give the support to hotels and restaurants. So next time, if you're on TripAdvisor or if you're booking for a corporate conference, you can actually see that, hopefully very soon, that you can see that this hotel has a star rating system of how many stars, and you know that they're sourcing from responsible sources. And I asked my panelists final question. If there's one call to action, you've already done it, so you can actually do another one. I'll give you one more. So a call to action to everybody.
I guess my call would be take ownership. It's your responsibility. It's not somebody else's. Start talking, start doing something, and come together to make that change. So I'm not going to tell you to say, right, let's get rid of one thing. I'm saying Take ownership over the problem. Take pride in your environment and come together and make something change.
The advice that I have for you all is to realize your superpower. You have way more power than you think you do as a human being on this planet. So use it, please. Take giving up plastic to another level. Leverage your power. Do what you can, and then do some more with me so we're not alone.